Happy Sunday, everyone. We are back with another edition of our Pod by the Beach. And today, on our California Culture series, we'll be taking a look at a part of the state that really doesn't get as much love as I think it should. Maybe I'm biased, but today we'll be taking an in depth interview with a longtime resident of California and of the Central Valley and of my hometown of Fresno. In this interview, we will take a look at some of the major differences in living in the Central Valley compared to the coasts, and especially how it delineates from that California mythical lifestyle that we have become so known for. So without further ado, here is my interview with my esteemed guest, Roxanne Alcantar.
I give you permission to use my recording.
So I have my mother here, Roxanne Alcantar, and today we'll be interviewing her about her experiences growing up as a Californian of what is it? I mean, your whole life, right? So I don't want to say your age, but a few decades. Let's just say it like that. So your experience as a Californian, I am sure, is much different than what most people would imagine. So if you could just we could just get into how what it was like growing up. All right.
I grew up in Parlier, California. I'm a child of the 70s. I was born in 1974. The town I grew up in is part of Fresno County. It's a very small, tight-knit Hispanic community. I would say probably about 98% of the people that live there while I was growing up were Hispanic. Yes, so I didn't grow up with a lot of diversity, but in my older years as a young adult, moving to Fresno, the city of Fresno, I became more aware of the diversity here in the Central Valley.
Yeah, because obviously, yeah, like you said, Parlier is a tiny town, maybe what, 10,000 people, if that.
Yes.
Yeah. And Fresno is, at least compared to some of the other big cities, it's not that big, but it's still a population now of over 500,000. So there's a decent amount of diversity there.
But it's still very old school to where it's very agriculture and
Hmm.
manufacturing are the big things that happen in those small towns.
Yeah, and that really, yeah, leads into, I guess, the main theme of this interview. And we talk about the myth of California, and it's a myth that really started with the Spanish coming here, thinking this was some paradise that they've heard in legends, the dream of California, especially, within the last couple hundred years, and that this place is like the land of their nuts and fruits, land of
Yes.
opportunity.
If you're willing to work, this was the place to come. And definitely from both sides, both my mom and my dad's side, that was pretty much the reason what brought them here. Being
Mhm.
that I'm first generation on my dad's side. My dad was born in Mexico, and on my mom's side, same thing. My mom was born in Brownsville, Texas, and worked the fields. And both sides of my family, agriculture definitely. The work brought them here.
Yeah. And then, yeah, speaking of the agricultural sector, I mean, within the last 100-ish years, especially in the last 50, with, the explosion of tech in Silicon Valley, and then with, the dominance of Hollywood and the glitz and glamour of, the celebrities that would come to dominate LA. Whereas the Central Valley and Fresno especially, it never really outgrew those origins of California as like a resource abundant agricultural area.
Yes.
Um, so, and that's really one of the big main differences that kind of wanted to delineate here from how you or us growing up in the Central Valley differs from what people think the California lifestyle is like. So
Yes.
obviously you didn't grow up going to the beach every day, going out to surf. So
No,
kind of just get into maybe one of the myths you might want to dismiss.
I grew up in definitely a different aspect of California, more of the, not too much of the urban, um, more of the country, slower, definitely slower than the bigger cities. The biggest thing of, I mean, as far as, the work, agriculture work, I would say it's a lot cheaper to live. This is a more economic friendly for families living in the Central Valley. And with that said, the pluses would be, you're centralized, so um, you're able to experience, the getaways, the family vacations. It was always to, the beach towns, mainly the Central Coast, Santa Cruz, Monterey. Um, Southern California, of course, the amusement park, the glitz and glamour of, Southern California. And then, of course, you got the Bay Area too. And, um, wanting to experience, you know, because that's a totally, different part of
Yeah,
California also. So, yeah,
yeah.
that is kind of the positive of living in the Central Valley. You also have Yosemite. Yosemite's 45 minutes away.
Hmm.
You got the sequoia, the trees, the mountains, very close to where we live. So yeah, I feel like you kind of do get the best of both worlds here. There are the cons, of course, but I feel like people don't really understand, you know, how it is living here unless you live here.
Yeah.
And
Oh
again,
yeah.
you get the
Mhm.
slowness, but if you do want, change of pace, it's not too far. So that's definitely a pro.
And then just in terms of like the social environment, I mean, because again, Los Angeles, San Francisco, known as like those are the spots where liberalism really gets its ideas from and where
Hmm.
it builds, at least on the West Coast. But as you've obviously experienced, especially within these last couple decades with politics, Fresno is, and most of the Central Valley is not like those liberal bastions that people think of Californians are. They're
Yeah.
definitely red leaning, and then the election results show that.
Yeah.
So, mhm,
I think, yeah, definitely. And then these days, it's definitely more, you're more aware of it. I think growing up, I didn't realize how, you know, how conservative the Central Valley was, but definitely
mhm.
now, the sign of the times, I do see it a lot more. Um, but then at the same time, it's so diverse, so I feel like there's still kind of a balance, but definitely see the more conservative red side now. I feel like.
And then speaking to the more political aspects of living in the Central Valley,
Mhm.
obviously one of the main, I guess, events that took place in California had to deal with the ICE raids and the subsequent protesting and the response to those protestings by the federal government, especially in Los Angeles, with sending, sending troops in to disseminate what they thought was, lawlessness.
Mhm.
Uh, but what isn't, with that taking all the coverage, you didn't really see, like, for example, what happens in like Fresno, where sure, LA is very Hispanic dominant, but
Mhm.
Fresno, its economy relies entirely on immigrant, especially Hispanic labor. So have you, having grown or having lived there the last year, what have you seen that maybe didn't really get talked about nationally in terms of the ICE raids in Fresno or the Valley?
Well, when it first started, the ICE raids, yes, I heard a lot in the media of, a lot of people not showing up to work and the farms, suffering that way because they didn't have workers showing up. But then it kind of dissipated a little bit. I would say I don't hear too much anymore around here. The main focus, of course, is, LA, that's, and really not as much as you would think, unless you go
Hmm.
and look for that type of information. It's not really, yeah, they'll show clips of it and on as far as our local news. They'll show clips of it or whatnot, but they'll definitely move on. It's not out there as much as it should be because, I know it's happening a lot.
Now try to get away from maybe more a less contentious topic. So again, yeah, you've grown up in California your whole life.
Hmm.
And even if, as your experience no, definitely differs from what most people think the California experience is like. What are some changes, that have come to mind over the decades, either in like the people itself or, just like the surrounding environment of, if not California, at least the Central Valley?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because again, California is a very expensive state to live in. The Central Valley is a lot more affordable than pretty much, anywhere else. So that's a major positive here. So, the housing definitely is still booming. I see it everywhere. And yeah, I mean, I feel like there's work here. You know, to an extent, people stay busy. I mean, I feel like our education system keeps a lot of people employed in our areas. You know, definitely, production and manufacturing is kind of, still big in this area also. Our wineries um, have grown and um, yeah, it's a lot cheaper to live here than, the bigger cities. But with that said, the problem with, we have extremely bad air. Our summers are, pretty brutal. It's over 100, the majority of the summer, we don't
The
get
climate
that.
change is definitely affecting
Oh yeah.
Central California to a significant degree. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. But there's a lot of diversity still, lots of diversity. There is, I mean, I feel like the crime has definitely in the 80s, Fresno, or 90s I should say, Fresno was known for, the gang
Hmm.
population being a little out of control. And I feel like that's, it's a lot safer than it used to be. But it's, again, it's California and there's a lot of people everywhere and things happen. But, for the most part, it's very family oriented, I feel like Fresno
Hmm.
and the Central Valley is still.
Yeah. And yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with like a more conservative ideal, definitely more
Hmm.
family oriented for sure.
Hmm.
So, and then so we only have a couple minutes here left. So
Okay.
to end off, I would have one final question. So, this has been like a topic probably for the whole time the United States has been a thing, but there's this constant debate of whether people do or should identify as an American first or identify as their state first, whether it be a Texan, whether it be a New Yorker, a Floridian. So to you, I know you said you hold an immense amount of pride from living in this state for being
Mhm.
Californian, but would you consider yourself a Californian first or an American first?
Um, I would say at this point, it would have been weird, growing up thinking, oh, I'm a Californian first, because that wasn't, where we were as a nation. I grew up I was very proud of, being an American. Now, not so much. I consider myself a Californian first, definitely. No. Mhm.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, good.
Uh,
You're welcome. I hope it was helpful.
no, it definitely is. This is where we part ways. Yeah, again,
Okay.
thank you, and then
You're
yeah,
welcome.
we'll see how this turns out.
Okay. Good luck.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay.